Welcome to the Celtic Myth Pod Show, bringing the tales and stories of the ancient Celts to your fireside.
Episode 3, The Rule of Bres the Beautiful.
Hello, and thank you for downloading this podcast. Welcome to the Celtic Myth Pod Show. I'm Gary.
And I'm Ruth, and we've got a great show for you today, with news and views, listener feedback at the end of the show, and part 3 of the Book of Invasions. But first,
You can contact us by going to our website, looking at the contact page, and you'll find email addresses, and you'll find our Twitter usernames. We've just joined up with Twitter, so come along and chat to us. You can talk to us in the forums, and in many other ways. And now for some news and views. This podcast is being launched on the 15th of March, which this year is St. Patrick's Day. Happy St. Patrick's Day to all you Irish guys out there.
yes, happy St. Patrick's Day.
Don't forget to have a look at the resources section, because in there we've now got a growing list of Celtic fiction. If you know more, jot them down. Come and give us a call.
Yeah, please do. We're gradually putting our bookshelf on there, and we'd like to see everybody else's as well.
My wish list is growing as well. You'll also find a whole set of character biographies there. So if you want to find out about some of the characters that we've been talking about in our episodes, a bit more information, who they're related to, little bits and pieces, just a reminder, go and have a look there.
Yeah, I spent a couple of days on those. I think I know those characters upside down and back to front now.
I think you do. Moving on then. In the last episode, blood was shed upon the plain of Tuatha, and the children of Danu finally vanquished the Favour. In that battle, the High King Nuada lost his arm, and the kingship passed to Bres the Beautiful.
At the royal rath at Coelquan, the high fortress, in Connachta, the nights were drawing close, and the fog wound itself around hazel tree trunks like a new bride winds herself around her man. Behind the wooden barricades and the silent sentries, the glow of the hearth hut warmed the grass inside the rath, and the noises of the evening cheered the hearts of the watchers. Inside the hearth hut, wrapped in thick furs to keep out the winter chill, Teal'c sat deep in thought. With a heavy sigh, she looked up at the old bard that sat opposite her, sipping his mead.
Tell me, poet, how many cold moons have we been ensconced in this muddy rath?
'Tis 7 moons, my lady.
7 moons since my king and lord Earki was slain. 7 moons since Shreng and I brought the people of the fair Bolg here to this place. Shreng is patrolling our borders, and I weary. Entertain me, poet. Tell me the history of this land.
Gladly, my lady, for it is your tale as well. The Tuatha Day, the first in joy to see the green land, the first faltering feet to step on its virgin soil. In the island of birth they named it. Kizair, first woman of the Tuatha Day, came next before the great waters, with Fintan, 2 men and 50 women. The 2 men died in battle for the women, left Fintan alone with 50 women and Erin to populate. So he turned into a salmon and fled, leaving the warm women to their fate. Then the men of Partholon from the land of Logic. After a mere 300 years they sailed from the west. Erin was raided by the Fomori from beneath the waves, and Partholon drove them back to sea from whence they came. The creeping sickness killed them all after only 120 years. All, that is, save for Tuan, who escaped the ravages of time by shape-changing and hiding, watching the empty lands and the ravages of the Fomori. Then he saw the fleets of Nemet sail up to the shores of Erin. From the hot south they came and drove back the favour. 4 times they drove back the hordes, bringing the death to Gan and Sengan, mighty favour. At the last, the Fomori overran the peoples of Nemed and demanded heavy tribute from the conquered ones. Every Sawen, 2/3 of their children of the people, was sent to the Fomori, along with 2/3 of their wheat and their milk. Harsh were the days of their folk, and long they suffered, until 3 champions led 60,000 warriors to the Dark Island, the island of Tori, to do battle with the Fomor. Alas, it was in vain, for the sea rose up and took them, and only 30 of their number escaped to flee. The land remained empty for 200 summers, till the 3 clans of Firbolg came to settle. The Firbolg, the Firdomnan, and the Gelanga.
So it was, so it was. Tell me, wise poet, of my own history.
You are tale to, light of foot, daughter of the Moimur, the great desert. From the black land with the mountains made by men, taken by Eache the fierce, son of Eric, to rule with him in Erin. You it is with the High King, who sealed the pact with the Fomor by taking the son of Ethne as your foster son. Ethne, daughter of mighty Balora the Fomori. Taking the son of Kian, son of Diankecht of the Tuatha De Danaan, bringing peace to the island for a time. Your foster son, who even now travels unknown about the land.
So it is. My heart blood seeps into the ground without my men.
Meanwhile, deep in the dark halls of Tavir, the Tuatha De Danaan sat with their new king, that was the most beautiful of all their young men. So that if a person wanted to praise any beautiful thing, whether it was a plane, or a dun, or ale, or a flame, or a woman, or a man, or a horse, he would say, "It is as beautiful as Bres." And he was the son of Eriu, a woman of the Tuatha De Danaan, but who his father was, no one knew but herself. But in spite of Bres being so beautiful, his reign brought no great good luck to his people. For the beautiful Fomori, whose dwelling place was below the sea westward, began putting tribute on them, so they would get them under their own rule. They were friendly with the Firbolg, and content to leave Erin to them, but there was jealousy between them and the children of Danu. It was a hard tax they put on them. 1/3 part of their corn they asked, and 1/3 part of their milk, and 1/3 part of their children, so that there was not smoke rising from a roof in Erin, but was under tribute to them. And Bres made no stand against them, but let them get their way. And as to Bres himself, he put a tax on every house in Erin of the milk of the homeless dun cows, or of the milk of cows of some other single colour, enough for 100 men. And one time, to deceive him, Nechtan singed all the cows of Erin in a fire of fern, and then he smeared them with the ashes of flaxseed, the way they were all dark brown. He did that by the advice of Druid Fingal, son of Findimas. And another time they made 300 cows of wood, with dark brown pails in place of udders, and the pails were filled with black bog stuff. And then Bres came to look at the cows and see them milked before him. And Kian, son of the Diankecht, was there. And when they were milked, it was the bog stuff that was squeezed out. And Bres took a drink of it, thinking it to be milk, and he was not the better of it for a long time. And there was another thing against Bres. He was in no way open-handed. And the chief men of the Tuatha De Danaan grumbled against him, for their knives were never greased in his house, and however often they might visit him there was no smell of ale on their breath. And there was no sort of pleasure or merriment in his house, no call for their poets or singers or harpers or pipers or hornblowers or jugglers or fools. And as to the trials of strength they were used to see between their champions, the only use their strength was put to now was to be doing work for the king. Ogma himself, the shining poet, was under orders to find firewood and bring it to the palace every day for the whole army from the islands of Maud. And he was so weak for want of food that the sea would sweep away 2/3 of his bundle every day. And as to the Dagda, he was put to build rafts, for he was a good builder, and made a trench round Cath Breze. He used often to be tired at the work,
and one time he nearly gave in altogether for want of food. This is the way that happened.
You have food aplenty there, mighty Dagda.
Well, I wouldn't say that. What of it, my blind friend?
For the sake of your good name, let the 3 best bits of your share be given to me.
Huh? Of course, good and well. I'd not see you go hungry.
1, 2, and 3.
But you've taken pieces as big as a pig.
Ha ha, it is only to reduce the size of your waist. I'll meet you here for tomorrow's feast, oh Dagda. Father!
Angus, my boy.
Father, you look awful. What ails you?
Not but work on an empty stomach, son.
You? Not eating? Tell me, Father, what has occurred?
Well, there's a reason for that. Every evening, Cridenbell, the blind man, makes a demand for the 3 best bits of my share of food. Take some from me.
I will help you, Father. Here, take these 3 pieces of gold and put these pieces of gold into the 3 bits you give this evening's Cridenbell. There will be the best bits in the dish, and the gold will turn within him, and that way he will die. You have food aplenty there, mighty Dagda.
Of it, my blind friend.
For the sake of your good name, let the 3 best bits of your share be given to me.
Help yourself, old man.
The doctor has killed Cridenbell!
The Dagda shall be put to death. You're not giving the right judgment of a prince. You know how Cridenbell used to say, give me the 3 best bits before you. Well, my own share is not good tonight. And on this night, the 3 bits of gold were the best things before me, and I gave them to him. And he died.
You've accused me. Now let's see whether or no you speak truth. Let the body of Cridenbell be cut open.
There is gold here, King. He has spoken true.
It's true.
There came a day, at last, when a poet came to look for hospitality at the king's house. Bres, son of Etain, poet of the Tuatha De Danaan. This is how he was treated. He was put in a little dark, narrow house where there was no fire, or furniture, or bed. And for a feast, 3 small cakes, and they dry, were brought to him on a little dish. When he rose up on the morrow, he was no way thankful, and as he was going across the green, he did curse Bres with satire by saying, without food quickly on a dish, without a cow's milk whereon a calf grows, without a man's abode under the gloom of night, without paying a company of storytellers, let that be Bres's condition. And from that day there was no good luck with Bres, but it is going down he was forever after. That was the first satire ever made in Erin. Now as to Nuada, after his arm being struck off, he was in his sickness for a while, and then the Diancecht, the healer with herbs, made an arm of silver for him, with movement in every finger of it, and put it on him. And from that he was called Nuada Argadlove, of the silver hand, forever after. Now the Miach, son of the Diancecht, and healer with craft, was a better hand at healing than his father, and had done many things. He met a young man having but one eye at Tavir one time, and the young man said, if you're a good physician, you'll put an eye in place of the eye I lost. I could put an eye of that cat in your lap in its place, said the Miach. I would like that very well, said the young man. So the Miach put the cat's eye in his head. But he would have soon have been without it after, for when he wanted to sleep and take his rest, it is then that the eye would start at the squeaking of the mice, or the flight of the birds, or the movement of the rushes, and when he was wanting to watch an army or a gathering, it was then that it was sure to be in deep sleep. And the Miach was not satisfied with what his father had done to the king, and he took Nuada's own hand that had been struck off, and brought it to him and set it in its place, and sang over it the charm, joint to joint, sinew to sinew, joint to joint, sinew to sinew. 3 days and 3 nights he was with the king. The first day he put his hand against his side, and the second day against his breast, till it was covered with skin. And the third day he put bulrushes that were blackened in the fire on it, and at the end of that time the king was healed. Brother Diancecht was vexed when he saw his son was doing a better cure than himself, and he threw his sword at his head, that it cut the flesh. But the lad healed the wound by means of his skill. And then the Diancecht threw it a second time, that it reached the bone, but the lad was able to cure the wound. And then he struck him the third time, and the fourth, till he cut out the brain, for he knew that no physician would cure him after that blow. And the Magh died, and he buried him. And herbs grew up from his grave to the number of his joints and sinews, 365. And Ermed, his sister, came up and spread out her cloak, and laid out the herbs in it according to their virtue. But the Dianchecht saw her doing that, and he came up and mixed up the herbs, so that no one knows all their right powers to this day. And then when the Tuatha De Danaan saw Nuada as well as he was before, they gathered together to Tavir, where Bres was, and they bade him to give up the kingship, for he had held it long enough. So he had to give it up, though he was not very willing, and Nuada was put back in the kingship again. There was great vexation on Bres then. He searched his mind to know how he could be avenged on those that had put him out, how he could gather an army against them. He went to his mother, Eriu, daughter of Delbe, and bade her tell him what his race was.
Mother, now I need to know who my allies are. Tell me, who was my father?
That is the story of my youth, and that one is mine, my son.
I am exiled from the children of Danu, mother. You cannot withhold my birthright.
Very well. I was young and blooming in the spring of my life, and I dwelt in the house of Meshini. High on the cliffs, I would gaze out to sea and watch the jewels of light dance with the waves. One warm summer high day, I saw what I thought was a silver boat, or silver raft, or something, I'm not quite sure of its form, but it floated easily on the calm sea. It was huge, and the waves cast it up onto the beach. And I saw that stood therein was a man of the fairest form, with gold and yellow hair that tumbled onto his shoulders, and he wore a russet cloak adorned with golden thread, and a brooch of gold upon his breast, a brooch with the sheen of a precious stone therein, 2 white silvern spears, and in them 2 smooth riveted shafts of bronze, 5 circlets of gold on his neck, a gold-hilted sword with silver inlay, and studs of gold he bore at his side. I waited breathlessly as he climbed up to me. He smiled at me and said, "Is this the time that you will lie down with me?" For I had refused all comers until that time. "But I have made no tryst with you," I replied. He held out his hand to me, and his voice was golden as he said, "Come lie with me." And we found a soft bed of heather, and the joy of him was in me. Then he made to rise, and I wept in full streams. "Why do you cry?" he asked me tenderly. I buried my head into his shoulder and answered, "I weep for 2 reasons, the first being that you are parting from me. The fair youth of the Tuatha De Danaan have been entreating me in vain, and my desire is for you as yours is for me." So he took his golden ring from his middle finger and put it into my hand, saying, "Your anxiety for these 2 things shall be taken away from you. Keep this ring of mine and do not part from it, by sale or gift, save to one whose finger it shall fit." And I took the ring. "Yet I have 2 sorrows," I said, "for I do not know the name of him who has been with me this day." "You shall not be ignorant of that," he said with a smile. "Ilatha, son of Delbe, king of the Fomori, has come to you. And of our meeting thou shalt bear a boy, and no name shall be given him save Bres, that is the beautiful fury. For every beautiful thing that is seen in Erin, whether plain or fortress, or ale or torch, or woman or man or steed, will be as beautiful as that boy. And after a time I did bear you, and I did name you as Ilatha had asked, even Bres. When a week after my lying in was complete, you had a fortnight's growth, and you maintained that increase till the end of your first 7 years, when you reached a growth of 14 years. We marvelled that it was so."
And she brought out the ring then to Bres, and he put it round his middle finger, and it fitted him well. And they went then together to the hill where she was the time she saw the silver vessel coming, and down to the strand, and she and Bres and his people set out for the country of the favour. And when they came to that country, they found a great plain with many gatherings of people on it. And they went to the gathering that looked the best, and the people asked, where did they come from? And they said they were come from Erin. Have you hounds with you? They asked them then, for it was the custom at that time, when strangers came to a gathering, to give them some friendly challenge.
We have hounds,
said Bres. So the hounds were matched against one another, and the hounds of the Tuatha De Danaan were better than the hounds of the favour. Have you horses for a race? They asked then.
We have, said Bres.
And the horses of the Tuatha De Danaan beat the horses of the favour. Then they asked, was anyone among them a good hand with a sword? And they said Bres was the best. But when he put his hand to the sword, Nuada, his father, that was among them, knew the ring. And he asked, who was this young man? And then his mother answered him and told the whole story, and that Bres was his own son. Oh, there was sorrow on his father then, and he said, what was it that drove you out of the country you were king over? And Bres said,
nothing drove me out but my own injustice and my own hardness. I took away their treasures from the people, and their jewels and their food itself, and there were never taxes put on them before I was their king.
That is bad, said his father. It is of their prosperity you had a right to think more than of your own kingship. Their goodwill will be better than their curses, he said. And what is it you are come to look for here?
I am come to look for fighting men,
said Bres,
that I may take Erin by force.
You have no right to get it by injustice when you could not keep it by justice, said his father.
So what advice have you for me then?
Said Bres. And Nuada bade him go to the chief king of the favour, Balor of the Evil Eye, to see what advice and what help would he give them. And Balor greeted him eagerly. In our next episode, a mysterious stranger tries to gain entrance to the court at Tuireadh. Watch out for The Coming of Lugh. And now for some listener feedback.
We've had an answer to my Red Dragon question from Dave the Bard, and he says,
regarding the Red Dragon and the Welsh flag, I've always connected it with the tale of Merlin's early years. When he's brought before Vortigern and sees the two dragons beneath his collapsing tower, one red, one white, they fly up and begin to fight. When asked what it means, the young Merlin speaks about the fight between the Britons, the Red Dragon, and the incoming Saxons, the White Dragon.
And thank you very much for that reply, Dave. If you don't know who Dave the Bard is, go and give him a listen on Druidcast, and you can find the link to that in our show notes. Another great email from Darkest Peru, as Paddington would say, was from George. I hope that's how your name is said, George. And it says,
hey guys, my name is Giorgio Ravila, and I'm from Peru. I found your pod show by accident and decided to listen. Great work, really. I mean, consider, I'm a Peruvian with Spanish ancestry and English is my second language. So what the hell am I doing listening to a podcast about Celtic myths, right? Well, I'm hooked. Keep up the good work.
so thank you very much for your email, George, and I hope you're enjoying the shows.
That's superb, George. Thank you. I do hope we got your name right. And I think you've probably got the distinction of being our furthest away listener at the moment. Well done. Thank you.
On our forums, just to keep you a little up to date, there's a wonderful piece about some Brendan, which one of our members, William, wrote. Well worth reading, that one. And also a piece about ley lines, about the Mary and Michael ley line that runs through Cornwall. And that was written by our member, Simon the Scribe. So do pop in and have a look. It's a really, really good article.
Yes, I've often wanted to explore that area.
Yes, it would be good. We ought to follow the ley line one year.
It is, yeah. We've got some excellent threads there. It's really beginning to take off now. It's well worth checking. And to finish off, we've received our first voice feedback. We're really pleased.
I'm really excited. I was so excited
I
when I
know,
found this.
it's really so good. And it works, and it's good quality, and I'm just really chuffed. Here's Erin, and this is what he has to say.
Hi, my name's Aaron. I'm from Columbus, Ohio. I'm really glad that you guys started doing something like this. I have such a hard time reading the myths, whether they're Irish or Greek or whatever. I don't know what it is, but the way you guys act it out, it really brings it to life and makes it a lot easier to get inside and enjoy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Erin.
That's what makes it all worthwhile, and that's the main reason we do it. Thank you very much. Well, that wraps up this episode, and until next time, Slán go bhfuil. You've been listening to the Celtic Myth Pod Show, available from CelticMythPodShow.com. We hope you've enjoyed the show and will stay tuned for the next episode. You can send us a quick email or voice feedback by emailing either Gary, that's Gary, or Ruth, Ruth, at CelticMythPodShow.com. You can chat to us in the forums on our website. The show notes for this episode can also be found on the website. We'd like to say a special thank you to Kulan's Hounds, who provided us with the theme music for our show. You heard Hag Hole at the beginning and are listening to The Skylark now. You can find out more about this foot-stomping band at www.sfhounds.com. And thanks again to Diane Arkinstone and Kim Robertson, whose music has been used for some of the incidental music in this podcast. You'll find links to their websites in our show notes.